Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the SaaS Marketing Show. Today, we're joined by Jonathan Ronzio, who is the CMO over at Trainual. So I'm just going to pull Jonathan up. There we go. Hey, Jonathan, welcome to today's show.
What's going on, Dylan? Happy to be here.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to having you here today. So we're live streaming right now on a few channels as well. So if you are watching live, wherever you may be, go ahead, drop a comment, come along and say hello so we can engage with you. If you have any questions, start bringing them into. I'll be kind of funneling through those with Jonathan as we go on today's session. And if you're watching or listening to this kind of after the live stream, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, make sure next time you keep an eye on our LinkedIn channel, YouTube channel, etc., so you can tune into one of these live episodes. Today, we're going to be talking, as I said, with Jonathan at Trainual, who's the CMO. And we're going to be talking about how they've grown 100% year over year using creative video ads as one of the many other things that's going on as well. And so Trainual makes it super easy to train and grow your team with one playbook for every process, policy, and SOP in your business so that you can onboard and train people faster. I saw on the website they're used by Jonathan, I don't know exactly how many, but let's just go with thousands of businesses, right? There was some cool ones on there like Design Pickle, UPS, Remax, companies that I'm sure a load of people will know about. So maybe to kick things off, you could just give us a real quick top level for anyone that hasn't heard of Trainual already, a bit more about kind of what you guys do.
Trainual, yeah, for sure, man. It's it's your business playbook. It's the secret stuff that every company has, but only the successful ones that scale actually take the time to write down, right? How often are we hearing today about the need for documenting processes and systemizing your business and organizing all of that knowledge, right? And there's ways to solve that early on with some free tools like Google Docs, right? But as you scale and the team grows in complexity, streamlining how that knowledge gets transferred and then also gets scaled repeatably and consistently is what Trainual solves for. So it's a very simple online training manual for growing teams.
That's awesome. I know that the kind of idea of SOPs and trainings and company wikis and all this kind of stuff seems to become even more popular over the last few years. So at our agency, we, similar to what you said, we use something like Notion, for example, to store all of our SOPs and documentation. And I know that one of my operations manager, when he found out I was interviewing you today, he was like, "Oh, make sure you try and learn a bit more about Trainual. I've been looking at it. Maybe it's something that we could use." So I'm kind of interested in this space a lot, like running a agency or even a SaaS company or anything else, having everything documented and systemized can really help improve everyone's kind of day-to-day lives, right? And free up a lot of their time.
So yeah, I mean, I guess to answer your ops manager's question, what Trainual does that's different from Notion is it has that next step of training, right? That's you can document everything and have it all there, and that's great if people have access to knowledge. I often think knowledge is where people find their confidence, right? But training is where people find their power. And so having both in one platform, where if you are already going through the motions of organizing all that stuff of how you do what you do and streamlining that knowledge in your business, having an additional layer of just easy step-by-step training, tracking, accountability, etc. It just, that's often it's you get out of Google Docs and then you're in Notion, and Notion's an awesome tool, but you get to a point with your team where you need to know who's seen what and who's tracked what and have they, completed this and that. And so there's just that extra training layer as you scale for accountability and consistency.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Okay, so today we're going to talk about specifically your video ad strategy and approach and what you have all done there. Now I want to just jump into that, but first I do just want to quickly set the scene for anyone listening or watching. They like to find out a bit more about just Trainual and how things are set. So we won't spend a ton of time on this, but I know you said in our kind of prep that you can be fairly open with what you're able to share. So no pressure, you can share whatever it is that you want. But I know from taking a look online, you guys did a Series A round maybe a couple of years ago or a year and a half or so ago. And I was looking on LinkedIn, kind of team size looks to be around about 40, 50 people. I'm not sure how accurate that is because LinkedIn messes things up sometimes, but maybe you could give some context as to whether it's business size, where you're at right now, or even more importantly, kind of how the marketing team is structured, how many people you have there. I think that would just provide some good context before going into what you've actually built out on the creative side.
100%. Yeah, so we did raise our Series A in November of 2019. and probably, who knows, this might be the year for a B, but yeah, we did 6.75 in the A, and have scaled incredibly efficiently since that. I mean, we launched the tool in January of 2018. We're now approaching 10 million ARR. We've over 5,000 customers. We're in over 130 countries. We've got over 57, or no, I think we just hit 57 people on the team full-time around the world and in the United States. So things have been scaling fast, and it's been really fun.
That's
Marketing
awesome.
specifically, in the first year, it was, as any small startup, right? Like a core people do a lot of things, right? So marketing was just all me at the start for the first year. Everything from the website to the copy to the video editing and running ads and email sequences, blogs, all of that was just coming from me. The first 2 hires that I made was a marketing manager to kind of take on more of the like ops and admin and logistical side of planning for these projects, and then a video editor to take that off my plate. Because very early on, it's funny, if you backtrack even a decade, both my brother, our CEO, and I, our background is in growing a video production company. So we both have that history and love for video. And then after we closed that company, and he basically started consulting for small businesses, and I moved out to the mountains and became an adventure filmmaker. And so I just kind of kept going further and further down this hole of just like my, exploring my love for video and storytelling in that medium. So as soon as we started this company, of course, we were going to, grab a camera and film whatever we could and figure out how to make that side of things work, how to figure out how to tell a different kind of fun story to the market that has historically thought of SOPs and processes as something that wasn't that sexy or fun. We wanted to infuse some fun into it and use video as a medium to do that. So video editor was hire number 2. And he's been fantastic.
That's
and
awesome.
then, yeah, since then, I think the marketing team is up to 9 other folks now. So it's me, and then our director of marketing, and then video is production still reporting up to me. And then Jamie, our director of marketing, is like all things comms and content and PR and design and all the rest of the stuff that supports the brand and demand gen.
Awesome. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think this is super interesting to me that you came from the video filmmaking background, right? Because like I don't know what you like, how you feel about this, but probably 90% of SaaS companies like don't even consider video as part of their like strategy, or even with their ads when they do, it's like always like pretty crap video, right? It'll be like either super generic stuff or everything like stock with no creativity, or I don't know, like people, we see it when they come to us and start working with us to run their ads. Like in the past, they may have ran a video ad, but it would be like a 3-minute explainer video that they run as their ad. And then they wonder like, hey, why are our ads not performing too well? So I'm like super interested to chat with you about this today, because I know when we look at the companies who are doing awesome things with video ads, it's the companies that are kind of taking that approach that you've taken and like going with creative, entertaining, like funny videos. But I know that a lot of SaaS companies are kind of scared to try that. And that's one thing that I want to talk about is like how I know for you, because that's your background, like in filmmaking, maybe it was a little bit easier, but I'm still intrigued to find out like how the rest of the people on the team felt about going down that route. So maybe we'll start with like, I think a really good place to start is we're going to talk about your video, like creative video ads that you've run. And so there are loads of them that have been run. So I would recommend anyone like either watching this live now or checking out the audio recording of this or whatever, like go to the Trainual Facebook page and go to like the ads section and see what's running right now. Cause that was like the first thing that I did when we spoke, and that will give them some insight. But for anyone that's actually watching this live, I think what I'm going to do, Jonathan, is I'm going to quickly roll the video that you shared with me before this. So, and then we can kind of give some context to it afterwards. So people listening like maybe won't have the full experience. They'll recognize hopefully some of the voices in the video. It's basically like a 1-minute long video ad. So I'm going to just play that now, let it run, and then we'll set some context to that and talk about that in a minute. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, this one and like anything that's not currently running on our Facebook page, including this one, you can go and find on the Trainual YouTube channel. We've got just a playlist called Commercials that has tons of our just fun video ads.
Nice. That's awesome. Okay, let me grab this up and it'll play right now.
Office policies and training manuals exist because of me.
So, you're thinking about training some new employees.
And if you were a boss and you had to deal with employees like me, well, you probably get tired of having to repeat yourself over and over.
And you could do like everybody else and use a standard training manual, and people are going to still ask you the same questions over and over again.
Before Trainual, I made some bad calls on what's okay to do at office parties.
I never read the employee handbook.
People are trained easier, faster, and they retain it better. So use Trainual.
Trainual makes everything easy to find and understand.
It's easy. It's simple. And I love simple.
So use Trainual. You won't be sorry.
Your business probably needs it, thanks to employees like me.
Okay, awesome. So hopefully that worked okay for everyone. Like, tell me, let's start from the very beginning, right, Jonathan? Like, how did you come up with this idea, or like what got you to this point? And then we'll maybe do some context around like, okay, how this was used in ads, like where it was in the like funnel, or like what performance was like, and all this other stuff. But maybe set some context around this ad specifically itself, because I know you told me it's just been nominated for like a pretty big award as well, which is how many other SaaS companies like ads are nominated for awards? Probably not too many. So do you want to set the scene a little bit around that ad that we just took a look at?
For sure, yeah. This one was really exciting, and actually very exciting right now. So the Shorty Awards, for anybody who's familiar with it, it's crazy looking at the list. Even last night, I got like the nomination thing, and it's like IBM and Dell and Airbnb and then Trainual, and it's nuts. So this one, I mean, you're an Office. Are you a fan of The Office?
Yeah, I love that show so much. That's why when you sent it to me, I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
So we coordinated this like early on in the pandemic. There was going to be no live shoot. There was no, I didn't even talk to the actors. This was all coordinated via script on text. I just like came up with some bullet points and sent them and got back an iPhone video. We made it happen pretty fast. And this was just that, like, the catalyst was reaching out to first Leslie David Baker, just like via email. Found his public email, his Gmail, sent them a note, got him to do something, got intro to Brian, got intro to Kate. The idea was like, oh, rather than just run with one, how much more impactful would it be to like splice a few of these actors together? And the genesis of the idea was, even when we launched Trainual, the very first like email filler that we had on our website, like if you went to sign up for the app, it just said like Dwight@dundermifflin.com was like the placeholder thing. And we just have been fans and always kind of had fun with Dunder Mifflin demo accounts. We've got someone on our learning team. His name's Sean. He created a Shaunder Mifflin account for all of his like customer success coaching calls. So we've just always leaned into, the playing with the Office situational comedy in our demos, because it resonates as like likely people that would have needed a better training manual, right? And so when, I don't know, we just figured why not reach out and see if they'd be open to it, and they were. And I wrote some lines that kind of played with their characters a little bit, and that's what we got back, and then Nick spliced it together, and it was magic. I mean, we ran that primarily on Facebook and Instagram, and it had like over 10 million views and over 6,000 shares, and there was just like crazy conversational virality happening on it that blew our minds as far as the effectiveness. And then if you like dial down as to what the conversion goal was, we were obviously hoping people would like check out Trainual and go sign up for a trial. And it drove over 2,000 new accounts from people just watching that and clicking through.
Nice. So was that like, because that's what I wanted to ask you. One of the things is like for an ad like that or a campaign like that, it's always like, in the SaaS world, everyone's always so focused on, okay, but what impact does that have on trial signups and registrations and everything else? Now, I know that sometimes I would imagine I don't know if you classify that as like a branded play, an ad like that, but it's like people are going to remember that ad specifically and Trainual because of that. And you can't always classify or clarify that into direct like trial signups immediately as a result, but people will remember the brand. But then there will also be people who see the ad, click on the link, go through and sign up. So I was interested as to like how you measured success for that internally, whether it was purely on sign up volumes, but then also looking at, okay, I don't know, like, were there other things you looked at, like website time spent on site from the ad, or like how did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the of course, the very baseline success metric is like, is this driving new trials, new accounts, new customers, new revenue, right? And so, so that's like the end of the day filter for a lot of stuff that we do. But at the same time, there's like a asterisk on that where it's known that some of this stuff, there's just value in the awareness and in the impressions and in the conversation. And so in that, like, probably when we first launched that in July, we threw so much budget behind promotion, even to the point where like you would look at ad manager and we wouldn't be seeing results that on a normal campaign we'd be like, yep, scale it up. But on this one, we could just, we knew from the comments and the conversation happening that there was something amazing, in this. And so I didn't treat it with the same kind of scrutiny that other campaigns might get. And we just that like while we have this and like the usage and term on being able to promote this commercial, let's just juice it for all we can and build that funnel of traffic and just awareness and start to retarget from there. And then we like spun up some like Trainual retargeting stuff where we'd show somebody like inside the app going through a Trainual of like how to clean up chili after it spills on the floor, and like things that like played with the situation, spun off these characters.
Okay. I have a couple of questions that you may not be able to, or like not want to answer. So if you don't, that's also totally fine. I wanted to ask about putting together an ad like that. Like obviously you have the experience and the team internally to work on like taking that footage and putting it together. It sounds like you managed all of that yourself internally. Was it the question I want to ask is like, how much did it cost you to put everything together? But I know that that's pretty direct and like some people won't want to cover that. So if you don't, it's totally fine. But I just want to figure out, like, I feel like one thing that may put some SaaS companies or marketing teams off running a campaign that creatively is they make some assumptions that it would be like crazy, like outside of the world of possibility to even put together an ad like that. But I have no clue because I've never worked on an ad campaign like that where it's so creative. Like maybe, I don't know if you can share anything or if you could like benchmark about like, hey, did this cost you a lot more to put together, or was it a lot more work to put together than some of your other ad campaigns? Or like maybe just how you think about that process, because clearly an ad like this has a big impact in the back end in terms of like the growth that you've experienced. I'm just trying to figure out like how I could make it sit for people that are super not nervous about running ads, but are like pretty slow with their strategies with video ads, right? Like they're happy to test like a basic remarketing video or like an introduction to the product video, and then hey, if we want to encourage them to think outside the box and be a little bit more creative, like how you kind of frame that to them. Does that make sense? I know it's like kind of 10 questions thrown together. I'm just interested because I'm so close to this myself, right? Because I saw the video ad that you shared and like my team have seen it and we've been looking at what you guys are doing, and it's like I know there are so many SaaS companies out there that if they were that creative with their approach would see such better results, but it's challenging for them to be brave enough to like bite the bullet to try it. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to get some like some groundwork laid for people watching this, listening to this, and people thinking about running video ads themselves.
So when it comes to actual like production value, I think my perspective, a lot of people hold themselves back from creating because they're too worried about the production value of things. They're too worried about how it's going to look. Like, I don't have the equipment, I don't have the skill, et cetera, right? And, my background in those years between like our event video company and Trainual, I made a adventure, like feature length documentary film with a handheld camera that shot in 720p, just like basically a feature length vlog before vlogs were even a thing, and won like a best documentary award for that because of the story, not because of the production value. Like I look at this thing today, it's called Between the Peaks. And of course today I'm like, oh man, I could have done that so much better. And I've got like every creator looks back at their work and is like, I wish I could do it again. Right. But at the time it worked. And so I like had that confidence of knowing that it doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need a huge production budget. You don't need a huge production team. you just have to capture meaningful moments and be able to tell a good story. And so that, like, coming into the, a SaaS company, I just had that perspective of like, hey, let's just grab an iPhone and walk down the street and start talking to it and run that as an Instagram ad, right? And that was like some of our earliest stuff. It was just my brother and I literally walking down the street with like a stabilizer, a little DJI thing on my phone, and just talking about like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to clone yourself? Well, you can clone your processes, try Trainual, right? Like, we just riff on these kind of situational things that we know are pain points that would resonate with our market based on the product. And like, just from an iPhone video, we'd run an ad and it would crush. And so we developed confidence early on that you don't need a lot and you can try a lot. And and then when we hired Nick and we had a little more bandwidth and resources to do a little higher value production, that's when we started playing with more things that you've seen, probably like the flamethrower ad that we did.
I love that so much. I was like watching that yesterday. I thought it was so cool. Yeah.
So we started testing, higher level production stuff, but at the same time, we're also taking, like, I've literally taken home videos from Chris and I back, when I was 7 and he was learning how to dive and sucked at it. And like, we ran that as a funny ad of him failing diving and saying like, things are better when you have training. Right. And we run that. And like, I've pulled videos out of like the early American royalty-free archives that show somebody like getting an employee handbook from like the 30s and like tied that in. So you can do so much with very cheap advertising when you just like test a lot of stuff. In the case of using any kind of celebrity talent, of course, the budget does go up. For that one, I can't disclose what exactly we paid each of the actors, but the whole video, I will say, was not over 6 figures. And then we were able to advertise for, a 6-month term on that. So I would encourage anybody to do more with less and to not hold yourself up because you don't have the best camera. Like, iPhones shoot in 4K now, and they have like in phone stabilization, and like, often that's what works best on social media anyway. Of course, when you're scrolling in your feed and you see the actors from The Office, you're going to stop and watch it. There's that kind of like recognizability and that star power there. But at the same time, what you had commented on, how most SaaS companies advertise, even whether it's a video or a photo, like, you're going through Instagram, you're clicking through stories, and then what you see, like a like beautifully polished background with like a gradient and a little product in there, you're instantly skipping through because it's an ad. It feels like an ad. Whereas if it was just like me holding a camera talking, or holding the phone talking to it, and even like what I've done is take those videos out of a phone after we've shot it, put it into Instagram, add the CTA using like the Instagram type, story type, and then download that video and then run that, because it looks like it was just created in platform. And then somebody's clicking through and it looks like, who's this guy or this girl that I forgot that I followed in my feed? And they might watch it for a second. And if you've got the right hook, you can get their attention rather than just looking like another ad. And there's a place for the higher production ads for when you want to like, burn manuals and like do jingles and all like build Legos and all like other random fun stuff that we've done that we have put the production effort behind. But I'm telling you, often the stuff that works best on social is just the candid first person, like, talk about what would you say to me if you were selling it right now? Say that to the camera, run that.
I have a couple of questions. So like, who in your team is managing like all of the ads in the ad platforms themselves? Do you have like a team that you work with that does that? Is it you? Is it done internal? Is there an agency? Like, how do you structure things there? Because I want to ask, like, for you, like, it sounds like for you the creative always comes first, but I'm interested to figure out like the actual process itself. So is it you that manages that? Is it someone else? What does it look like?
It was me for a very long time. Like, as we built the team and we went from 4 of us to 50 of us, and from 1 to 10 in marketing, I hired for people to do all the other things, and I stayed focused on like obviously top level strategy and revenue goals and all that. But like the things that I didn't, the last thing to come off my plate was actually like creative direction and running the ads. Okay. And so I'd work with like creative direction and work on bringing these videos to life and these ideas to life with Nick on a week-to-week basis in the video side. And then I'd often just be running all the ads. it was me until just a couple months ago when we hired a paid acquisition manager. Finally, like it got to the team size and also our budget size and what we were doing on not just Facebook, but on TikTok and Reddit and Quora and LinkedIn and YouTube. Like our just scale of advertising got to a point where I just couldn't effectively manage it every single day anymore. And so that became the last thing to come off my plate.
Okay.
Other than now just the fun side of creative direction and making ideas happen.
So how often, I know this is a pretty open question because it depends on so many things like budget levels, goals, so many stuff, but like how often are you introducing new creative like experiments or new videos? Obviously the ones like the office video, like that's a big project, right? So you're not going to do like one of those every few days or every week, but like with some of the other creative that you're running, you're talking about like just shooting things quickly, putting them together. Like how do you approach the creative testing process or iteration process? Like how often are you switching things up or adding new things in? Are you basing it on front end like performance that you see in the ads platforms? Because I know that obviously that has a big say, but then also from what you said earlier about like you just have a gut feel about some of these campaigns too and the impact they're having. Like how do you approach that? Because I'm really interested talking to someone like you who's very much creative focused. Like usually when I have conversations about paid ads with people, it's very much focused on the actual like what's going on in the back end of the actual like ad buying, right, and structure there. But the creative is like, especially on social, is in my opinion way more important than any of that stuff. But it's rare to get to have conversations with people like yourself on this. So I'm interested like how you approach that creative testing process and how often that happens.
Yeah, we try to have something new out like every 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Sometimes some of our best ads are running, it's like in early December, we built a whole bunch of campaigns. And one of the ads that we started running was I mean, you've obviously heard people talk about the metaphor, like they wear too many hats, right? Yeah. So I used, I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Printful. The ad with all the hats on, right? I saw that one. Yeah.
So Printful is a drop shipping company. So you can just go and like order one-off clothing and stuff. So, right. So I went and just ordered trucker hats with like all these different titles on the actual hat and then just stacked them on top of my brother's head and had him go through like, what's the process of handing off hats in your business? Like, what do you go through before you become the CEO? That thing crushed because like in a matter of 45 seconds or a minute, it's not only entertaining and contextual to the platforms that it's running on, but it tells the story of the product and it tells a pain point of an entrepreneur. And it's actually even educational to like, all right, think about this and then this and then this as far as the places in the business. And so that one has been running now for 4 months or something. And it's still killing it. So some of them cycle through a lot faster. Some of them we let run for a while, but we try to have something new every 2 to 3 weeks and sometimes faster. My motto with my team is execute at the speed of ideas. Mm-hmm. And so it's like when an idea strikes, we just try to figure out, to a degree, I guess I never want to overload and disrupt like what they're already doing, like business as usual, according to plan, like the content editorial and all that kind of stuff. So I need to, as we've scaled, I've had to kind of like meter what bombs I throw onto the team as far as like, let's do this now. But when it comes to the video creative, that's something that we have been able to run with extremely fast and make those ideas happen, rapidly and test them. Because I mean, that's the magic of paid media is that if you have an asset, you can throw, $500 behind it for the course of a day or 2 days and very quickly see like, hey, what's the response? And that's like that like immediate feedback loop is so powerful. So why not test a whole bunch of stuff and figure out what message, what creative, what vibe, what feel. And ultimately you're right. I mean, I think I lead with thinking about feeling and creative and what that does for brand reputation and impact and conversation and reputation in the market. And then make sure it's backed up by driving, business results. I care about all of that, of course, to get where we are now. But for me, the lead is always the creative, the feeling. And so like, as I'm unpacking that creative process, again, I'll throw it back to like my background in that documentary storytelling space, right? There's like elements of a documentary that don't all have to be in one ad, but you can I guess it's been my like way to pick things apart and figure out like what types of videos to test. And that's like, you've got in a documentary, you've got interviews, you've got cutaways, you've got action, you've got emotion, and you've got archival footage, right? And so thinking through like those 5 things, some ads can have all of that. Some ads are just the archival footage, like I've talked about. Some ads are really emotional. We did an entire like 20-minute brand film about what it's like to be like a really emotional feeling about like trying to build a business and not have time for like spending time with your wife or children or doing the things that you love, and how you get to the point where you can effectively systemize things around you so it's not all tied to you. And then we chopped up little bits of that and started running those like more of those emotional moments as ads to then drive people to like watch the whole story. The interviews and cutaways and action can all kind of be combined to like, it's like pull your Zoom testimonials from your customer calls, throw it in with some like random product B-roll, and throw that in with some like behind the scenes footage that you have of you and your team at the office or wherever you hang out, and then put a hook at the beginning of it, and bam, that's like a mix of a story right there. So I think it's infinite, the amount of creative iteration you can have. You just have to have the appetite to do it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And a more, I guess, like slightly, not really a technical question, but with the ads themselves, with those video ads, are you running most of them with the like conversion focused objective, or are you running them with like video view objectives and like brand awareness objectives? Or I would imagine you probably have tested with a few different setups there, right? Like I'm interested to if there's anything to add there or know more about that'd be interesting for me, because especially these higher production videos that you put, like The Office one, we put a lot of time into that. Like you want people watching it, but you also want the kind of conversion in the back end too. Like how did you set that up? How do you manage that?
What's always worked the best for us is to start with the conversion goal.
Yeah.
So like most of the video ads start with conversion optimization. Yeah. If the ads are doing really, really well for a while, and then that conversion cost starts to climb a little bit, then at that point we'll get to a threshold and be like, okay, we know that this resonated for this market for this period of time. Let's pull off the conversion goal, and now just like, let this be a secondary ad. We'll figure out something new for the conversion goal, and this one's going to sit as a video views ad or an engagement ad with a little bit lower budget, with a little bit wider audience, and we're going to let that run to still pull in the attention that we know that it can based on the initial response we got, just like switching up the audience. And then from there we'll build the retargeting against anybody that's watched 75% or more, and then throw them into new conversion campaigns, right? So it's like you can use them through different levels of the process, but we usually start with conversion.
Okay, cool. And then one other thing I want to touch on before we start, kind of like, I think we have about 5 minutes left. So one other thing I want to touch on is when we were talking ahead of this interview, and then you also referenced it a couple of times earlier on about other platforms that you're running onto, because like naturally everyone in the SaaS world will go to like Google Ads first, and then we'll be running on paid social, which is usually like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, for example. You said something about you're running ads on other platforms like TikTok and Quora, Reddit, and all those places. But one thing you also told me about was some like jingles that you're running on Spotify. And I was super interested to hear about that, or any like other of those kind of left field for stereotypical SaaS experiments that you've run. Like, could you talk to me just a little bit about that? Like, what's the extent that you have running on like Spotify? And then maybe we can talk about like TikTok and some other places as well. I'd love to just know a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Spotify, we've got two audio ads running on Spotify. One, my friend Russ, who's the founder of Design Pickle, he just as a joke, like as an April Fool's joke for the company one year, they launched like Jingle Pickle. And as one of the examples, he did a rap jingle for Trainual, where it's like, he just says like, it's training, it's a manual, it's Trainual. And that just loops, and it has like this like dubstep rap beat behind it. And so we've got that. And then like I was in the kitchen, just feeding my dogs one morning, and just I'm a musician as well, so I just like I'm always writing songs and lyrics, and a jingle just popped into my head, and so I just recorded in my phone. It's like, if you've got to train some people and you need a manual, get Trainual. And I just sent that to my friend Chris, who's a producer, and was like, dude, make this sound like a cheesy 90s jingle. And so he sent it back, and so we've got those two that we just run with like an image tile of like what it shows the logo and a little CTA. And we run both of those on Spotify to drive traffic and awareness.
What's
Like,
what's the targeting like on Spotify? Because we haven't run ads for anyone on Spotify. How do you set things up there?
yeah, you can choose by age and by interest. So for us, we choose anybody that's like, listening to
Like business podcasts and things like that, right?
Lifestyle. Like, I guess it's understanding not just the demographics, but the psychographics of your audience set, and knowing that, like, okay, a entrepreneur or small business leader, they typically, like, we know, watch The Office and Shark Tank, and they read 4 Hour Workweek and the E-Myth, and like we just kind of early on went through that process of unpacking, like, as anybody should, what's the persona, and so that has informed a lot of where we do our targeting. So for these platforms where you can't necessarily build a custom audience or a lookalike audience, you just have to pick on the interests. That's what Spotify is. And so we just pick, like, business and lifestyle and travel and things that we know typically, and then the age range our audience is hanging out.
How does that work for you guys in terms of like conversion and spend? Is it like a good channel for you, Spotify? Is it working well, or is it more like just another brand play? I'm interested.
It's majority brand play, but it does work. It does work pretty well for driving some new traffic to the site that then goes into another retargeting funnel.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so, is there anything else? What's that?
I was just gonna say there's not a ton of budget behind the audio, but it's like, I firmly believe, why not be everywhere, right? If you're trying to build a real brand, this I guess comes back to valuing creative and feeling and brand as much, if not more, than the like business metrics. Just have fun with it, right? And so I think, like, you should be at least retargeting everywhere, right? You can get a pixel from every single platform, and then maybe Google is where you spend the most money, and that's where you, like, your search campaigns do the best for you. But how many people hit your site and don't convert, right? And so why not come up with some contextual creative, like some memes for Reddit, or some promoted, organic posts for Quora, or some, like, just a fun TikTok video. Like, be everywhere retargeting, even if not for your main acquisition channels.
Yeah, I love that. It's just like, I'll be honest with you, I'd not even thought about running SaaS ads on Spotify. And then when you said that to me yesterday, I was like, damn, I need to look into this more, because I felt like I wanted to talk to you and kind of get a gauge on how it's working for you, but it makes so much sense to me. But I think it takes for us, like, I would love to run that immediately for everyone, right? For all of our clients. But I know that probably 95% of them would be very, like, wary about something like that. It takes the more, like you say, like, people that think about creative and brand in a slightly different way from the stereotypical, like, B2B demand gen marketer that's purely focused on trial sign up, value per channel and stuff like that, right? But I had a few ideas after you shared that with me, and I was like, wow, this is super smart. I appreciate you for, like, sharing some of these things, because I think it's provided some solid inspiration for me and my team just over the last, like, 24 hours since we knew we were going to have you on the podcast. I know that a lot of people who will listen to this over the next week or couple of weeks will find this very interesting, because very rarely do you have such a creative, focused conversation when it comes to SaaS marketing, right? Like, it's always so much, or 90% of the time, so focused on, like, typical B2B demand gen metrics and numbers and MQLs and SQLs and all this kind of stuff. And I think this is one area that gets missed a lot, and I want to start experimenting more with, but it, like, takes people and teams like you to be able to show other people that, hey, look, this actually works, right? Like, and it is like, you should try these different approaches rather than just following the same playbook that everyone else does. Yeah.
I mean, I think anybody like take away from this, just try to think more about story than production. Don't overthink it. Like, test more, do more with less, and try to go a little more high level than just your product, right? Like, think about the story of, like, what's the life around your product, and what are the pain points. I mean, we always talk about this, and I'm sure everybody cares about this in their copy, and they're like trying to optimize for the copy on the landing page, and like speak, anybody who's following, like, Harry Dry with marketing examples, right? Like, they know that now is the time to speak more about the feeling and the pain and the, like, the real human side of things, right? But then But then you go to like the video ads and you go to just general advertising, and it's so performance based that everybody goes back to like, oh, I've got to just like dial in my right audience, and I've got to show the value prop of my product, and I've got to like make sure that they, you know, they see all my 5-star reviews and all that. It's like, go a little bit higher and unpack like what is the metaphor and the imagery and the attention grabbing story you can tell about that like eventually ties into your product, right? So it's like, think about squishing your funnel into 30 seconds or 1 minute. How do you like awaken their attention, capture their, like, show them the pain and the solution and your product all within, you know, 30 to 60 seconds. Do that with a metaphor, and then, you know, see how that goes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for like jumping on today with me, like quite short notice, and kind of sharing what you've been working on. I really appreciate it. I think this has been good. I know that a lot of people will find value in this when they hear it. And thank you for live streaming this with me too. I appreciate that. I think we can start to wrap things up now. Is there anything that you want to share? Like, I don't know, I think most people listening to this or watching this would have already like gone to the Trainual site if they're interested, just as they're listening. But like, is there anything else specific you want to kind of either push them to or talk about before we go?
Yeah, I mean, like, as you mentioned, if anybody wants to see any of this stuff that we're doing, these video ads, you can check it out on the Trainual YouTube channel. It's all posted there, or you can just like hit our website and expect to be retargeted.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome.
But yeah, if your business needs it, check it out. Trainual is an awesome tool for growing teams. But otherwise, if you want to just connect with me, ask questions, I'm at Jonathan Ronzio, like anywhere across social, and happy to chat.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dylan.